rail fans, welcome. This is going to be a layout update. I wanted to tell you a little bit about, I had some plans on how the layout was going to change some, and I've got a few questions as to how the changes are coming along, and so I wanted to sort of answer that and let you know where things are at. And then let you know about some side projects, really mainly one side project I've started working on, which has actually kind of delayed a lot of those changes to the joint line I've been telling you about. Plus I've been modifying those changes, and so I'll show you how the track plan has been evolving quite a bit from the last layout update I showed you and some of the changes I was planning on doing into what the sort of current plan for the layout is. But before we get to my layout update, I wanted to go ahead and give a shout out to Mike Deverell. He has a layout called the Colorado Front Range, and if that sounds kind of familiar with my Colorado joint line, your assumptions there are going to be correct in that we model the same area. Although the area that Mike models about the joint line actually extends quite a bit further than mine does. He sort of extends it all the way through Colorado Springs and south towards Pueblo, and extends it north of Denver, which really isn't the joint line anymore, but north of Denver up towards Longmont. And then his primary time frame is a little bit earlier than mine as well. But it's really neat. I highly recommend you check out his channel for several reasons. The first of which, it's really neat, I think, to actually look at two different interpretations of the joint line. You can look at my joint line and the things that I'm sort of emphasizing and how I'm operating it and modeling it. And then you can look at his, and he's taken certainly a different approach than I have. And it's really neat to see what his interpretation of Palmer Lake is versus mine, his interpretation of Denver versus mine, and how they are similar in some areas and dissimilar in others. And so that's really neat. Additionally, his layout is very advanced. It's really neat. It's under construction still. It's certainly not done by any means. He's got lots of scenery left to do. And I think he even still has some track left to put in. But he is really pushing the envelope on sort of some layout control and some other ideas far beyond what I'm doing. He's installing small little RFID chips or tags into his rolling stock, and he set up his layout and computer system to actually keep track of that as rolling stock for him as they move into sidings and move into yards and move into hidden staging. He can actually track where those things are, and he tells you how he does that. It's really neat. He's also got all of his layout built in JMRI and uses that to control the layout, and has built a CTC panel in there and uses that to control the switches with a CTC operator dispatcher, which is really neat, and he talks about how he's done that. He's got an excellent looking backdrop that he's painted on there, excellent clouds, and a very good rendition of the Front Range, and he shows you how he's done that, and lots of other things in there. Track plan certainly a lot larger than mine and incorporates a lot of areas of the joint line and around Denver that I don't. And it's really cool. So again, highly recommend you check it out. Colorado Front Range and Mike Deverell. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and talk about some of the changes to my layout. As you recall from the last one, I had a few problems with some buckling due to expansion and contraction of the layout in the winter with the humidity changes and temperature changes. All that's been fixed, but some of the other changes I talked about I haven't done yet. I haven't fixed the sort of waviness of my skyboards and have not changed the configuration of the layout at all yet. And the reason for that is as I started looking at the plans and talking to some other modelers and model railroaders, I sort of discovered that those plans were not exactly what I wanted to do. And so I started making a few changes to the plans, and the more changes I made, the more changes I wanted to make, and so I've come up with almost a completely new joint line plan that I am considering that would pretty much scrap the entire current layout with the exception of the Larkspur Bridge, that Santa Fe Bridge that's there, this one here. With the exception of this scene, it would sort of completely take down the remainder of the layout and then start anew. Which again, I think would give me a lot better layout, because this layout was not designed or built to be a permanent layout. It was designed sort of to be one for a couple of years because I thought I was going to be moving right away. Alright, so that's sort of where the plan stands right now, but let me talk about a little bit on how I got there and show you the iterations and steps planning that it went through and some of the design compromises or changes that were made. As I do that, though, I do want to say thanks to everybody out there who posted comments and gave me suggestions and ideas about it, whether I incorporated the idea or not. Thanks very much for the feedback. And special sort of shout outs and thanks to Bill and Joe, Mike and Gino for all their comments and back and forth on the changes, especially Bill, who really took a lot of time. A lot of you guys know him. He's called the Track Planner. And he took a lot of time and helped me with the layout and actually drew up a couple plans for me to look at and consider. And that was really cool. I really appreciate that. So with all that, here's how it sort of started and how it evolved to what the plan is today. All right, so this is how it started. This is sort of what I was planning on doing, was taking the existing layout, turning Palmer Lake around, and adding in a little section for Denver. But as I started looking at that, I wasn't sure that was quite what I was going to do. I won't go through every single iteration on here because I'm up to something like 58 versions. But I'll show you a couple of the major changes. The first change was to sort of get out of the basic C shape or U shape that I had designed, that I had started with. And this was one of the things that Bill came up with, of go ahead and extending the layout sort of down some. It gives me more space in the middle, lengthens the main line out, and allows the yard in Denver to be a little bit longer. And I thought that was really good. It kind of helped me start thinking out of the box. And then once I made this change, I kind of thought, well, there's some other changes I could make as well under this new idea. And so here was sort of the next major change, and there's a couple of them here. One was to go ahead and put Denver's north yard up against the wall and make it a sort of a shelf, a layout of a piece. This is still just the engine facility, but you do have a couple industries there then, and it gives some separation then between Denver's north yard and the BNSF yard. Additionally, in this plan, I had enough space now sort of on the inside of the BNSF yard to put Denver Union Station there. And even though that's not exactly where it is in Denver, it's supposed to actually be south of the BNSF engine facility. And passenger trains don't actually run over the joint line nowadays. It's a great structure and would allow me to run the ski train and Amtrak trains sort of just in and out of hidden staging, but would give some nice variety there. Additionally, this plan incorporated Colorado Springs as another destination on the layout. However, by adding Colorado Springs without dramatically increasing the length of the run, I really shortened or compressed the distance between each of the locations on there. And so there's really not much space now between Big Lift and Larkspur to Palmer Lake, and Palmer Lake to Colorado Springs. And so that sort of led me to where my current version is, which in this one I took a big departure of, I went ahead and flipped the entire layout around. And so instead of, on the current layout, you're standing on the west side of the tracks at every location looking east. So you're looking out onto the plains of Colorado instead of towards the mountains. And really, if you're going to rail fan the front range of the Rockies, you kind of want to face the mountains. But when I had initially designed a couple of the scenes, like the Larkspur Bridge scene and Palmer Lake, those scenes had put you on the west side of the tracks, and so the whole layout you ended up on the west side. So in this one, I went ahead and kind of flipped that all around, and once I did that, I decided that the whole layout actually flowed pretty nicely. And so I'll go ahead and sort of give you a tour of the new outline of the layout and how I think it's going to sort of evolve. Okay, so here's the current design. I'm still working on a few things, but I'll go ahead and kind of walk you through what the layout's looking like right now. So starting on the most geographically southern location, and sort of in the lower left-hand area, is you would come out of hidden staging, which would be underneath the layout, come up through a helix and enter Academy siding, which is actually on the grounds of the Air Force Academy. And this is part of the single-track mainline area of the joint line. From there, you'd head north towards Palmer Lake. You arrive to Palmer Lake and then move on to the double-track mainline area of the joint line. From there, kind of come down some, go through the flyovers, make about a 90-degree turn, go through Larkspur. And this scene will be the same scene that's on my current layout, but it'll be flipped around. So you'll be looking at what currently is the back side of the bridge because you're standing on the other side of the tracks. But that'll work out okay because right now there's a Rio Grande Bridge on the northbound line that you can't really see too well on my layout because it's kind of hidden by the Larkspur Bridge.
because just like on the prototype there, the southbound line is higher than the northbound line, and because you're standing on the west side, the northbound line gets a little bit hidden. So with it flipped around, won't have that problem anymore. Then you make about a 180-degree turn and enter Big Lift, which now Big Lift is a little bit larger. It can actually be operated and switched a lot better, as well as staging the helper engines out of there. And then you make the turn and you go into Denver. In this plan, I was able to keep Denver Union Station on the plan, and it's a lot closer to where it really is in Denver, and it's on the correct side of the tracks and everything. And then you go go underneath Park Avenue, and past the BNSF engine facility or Santa Fe BN, depending on the time period I'm running. And then you have a Santa Fe BN combined yard. And then the Rio Grande track essentially just ducks in behind the yard, moves along, and then it and the tracks coming out of the yard go into a helix and go down to a lower level area of Denver that's the same level as hidden staging. And then on that level is where you've got the Rio Grande engine facility, and then essentially a section of the hidden staging yard. And so that'll allow that yard to be used as both hidden staging as well as the Rio Grande yard. And so your Rio Grande engines can come off the ready tracks, couple to their train, and then take it south over the joint line without having to have a complete separate yard for the Rio Grande yard.
All right, guys, so as you can see there's a lot of changes potentially for my joint line layout. I think all of them are great, all of them are really good, and especially the current design that it's at, I think I really like, because it allows me to keep this existing layout in place while I build that sort of shelf and the first part of staging that runs between Academy Siding and Palmer Lake. I could build that while the existing layout stays up, and so whether that takes me 1 month to build or a year to build, I can leave the existing layout up and still operate and run trains and do reviews and other things. And so I really like that aspect to it. Additionally, though, I kind of mentioned I had a side project. And if you guys can tell from a lot of the reviews I do, I'm not strictly a joint line modeler. I've got lots of other modeling interests, partly because of living in lots of different parts of the country and rail fanning lots of different railroads. But also, I still like a lot of the old steam engines in the transition era of model railroading or railroading. That is really neat and fun, where you've got first generation diesels and the sort of premier steam power running around. And if you've noticed, I've done several reviews of Pennsylvania engines, and that's because I'm kind of a fan of the Pennsy. And so I've got an idea to build a small Pennsy switching layout off on the side, and so that's sort of been taking up some of my time and taking it away from the joint line planning and construction, and I've been working on that. And so again, I won't make this video completely about that layout and the design of it and all the different changes. I'm going to do that as a separate video here in the future and show you how that is built. But I think that'll be a good series of one talking about sort of from concept to design to building the bench work, how to lay the track, how to install the switches and get them working, how to do some structures, either kits scratch built or kit bash things, and then how to look at operations in that switching layout. And I think that'll be a lot of fun, and I'm kind of leaning towards doing that right now instead of all these changes of the joint line and leave the joint line as is. But I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I change my mind every day, or a couple times during the day, as to whether I want to start working on the joint line changes or just continue to work on the Pennsy switching layout changes. Okay, so with that, stay tuned, watch for future updates, and you can kind of find out as I find out what I've been working on and how much time I'm spending on the Pennsy switching layout and everything associated with it versus the modifications or continued expansion of my current Colorado joint line layout. So with that, I think this is going to wrap up this video. Again, for the shout out, check out the Colorado Front Range YouTube channel and layout. Super awesome stuff. You'll learn a lot if you watch the videos. They're very long, they're very in-depth, and so check those out. In addition to that, stay tuned to see what happens with my layout, see where they're going. Let me know in the comments below as to what you think about my ideas and what you think of focusing just on one railroad or sort of having two railroads simultaneously. But with that, remember, as always, keep running your trains, keep enjoying them, and we'll catch you at the next update.